And let me introduce my good friend Ron Morrain. He's co-founder and DOS at the Language Learning Center in Germany. He's active in HRM and HRD as a manager, and he's been a consultant for over 30 years. And that doesn't even do him justice, but I don't have an hour to tell you all the great things this guy has done. But Ron, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for inviting me.
And
can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you fine. And
great.
Ready? Remember, 10 minutes this time.
And I totally agree that it's very difficult to talk for just 10 minutes.
Yes. Okay, so you're ready to go? I'm going to give you total control. And you got it? Ready? Thanks again.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks everybody. And let me just say that it's pretty difficult to talk about mind mapping and the combination of task-based learning and problem-based learning, project-based learning, and how to connect that to mind mapping. Well, what I want to talk about very quickly are 10 reasons why you should be using mind mapping, task-based learning, and project-based learning in second language acquisition for adults. And whether you're working in an academic or corporate environment, the basics basically stay, well, everything really stays the same. After about 20 years of implementing it, I've come up with these 10 things that maybe I can share with you, or I would like to share with you, about why we should be doing that in the classroom with adults. First of all, using TBL and mind mapping together help to activate the 4 C's of learning. So, of course, we know that the 4 C's of learning are part of 21st century skills, and those are communication, creativity, collaboration, and critical thinking. Very quickly, I always try to, when I say communication, emphasize the active skills of speaking and writing. Creativity, if you're doing task-based learning correctly or project-based learning, in the end, students do have to create a product, and you have to help them to make those choices they need to make in order to feel some sort of success in TBL. Collaboration, we as teachers should always be promoting group work, teamwork, and also collaboration with the teacher. Critical thinking, basically here I'll just say getting away and teaching students to get away from status quo thinking, group think, and prescribed consensus, and also secret learning. Let's move on to the second one here. Here are just some quick things that we might already all know about. And one of them is using TBL, PBL, and mind mapping together in adult education helps to remove the very traditional approaches that many teachers may have when it comes to like chalk and talk. Very frontal, stand in front of the board, write some things with the chalk, and most of the talking is usually done by the teacher. As I observe teachers, and this is part of my job, we try to help them to get away with that by helping them to understand TBL, PBL, and maybe some mind mapping techniques to help them to really concentrate on student-centered learning instead of teacher-centered learning. Reduce print and push, which is more means good preparation is not standing in front of a copy machine and printing from a textbook with prescribed grammar. But basically getting the students to really find the work themselves, research and curate the work so that they really have a big choice in what's going on in that classroom. Reduce drill and kill, which is just repeatedly going into the class doing the same thing. Some of it down to just basically getting them to conjugate verbs in very specific grammar tenses. I think adults get pretty bored of that after a while. Of course, I don't ever do it. Promote voice and choice. This is one of the big things, getting people to take responsibility for their own self-development and having a voice in creating the learning and learning strategies that will help them to feel successful and reach their goals. That's how I define voice and choice. 3, integrate technology into the second language learning experience. For me, working at a university, I am required to use Moodle. So, of course, Moodle is the basis in my learning management system that I have to use. But again, I also try to get students to use smartphones, iPads, laptops, apps, internet, and all the other things that can help them to successfully reach their goals. And of course, working with young people today, it's just very normal to integrate technology into the learning process. I try very much to create meaningful learning experiences for my adults that I'm working with, whether it's academic or corporate. And one of them is to simply always use mind mapping techniques in the classroom and to elicit some of the ideas that they may have, which of course means that we always come up with some kind of worksheet that is the result of the mind mapping. And if you look very closely here, you can see that I also help them to rate some of the reading articles that they bring into class. Of course, the reading articles is what they research and curate themselves. That sort of helps to understand an example of meaningful learning. Number 5, to optimize and energize the in-class learning experience. Working with adults across Europe, I've always found that the older adults who I've worked with come with very traditional ideas of learning, are very surprised that a task-based learning means they have to take the responsibility of helping to put the class together. This is something new for them, and something definitely new if you're working with non-European cultures a lot of times. I do a lot of online learning, so with my MBA students, and this helps mind mapping, task-based learning, problem-based learning, project-based learning helps to optimize that. Time management versus think time. Sometimes we expect students to come up with answers very quickly. We do not give them the think time that they need in order to give us the answer that we're looking for. So we've got to be able to incorporate that into the learning process, and TBL, PBL, and mind mapping helps them to do that. They also have to learn to do good time management. I do a lot of exam-oriented learning, and so they need to learn how to incorporate time management into how they're doing things. Number 6, reduce text-heavy course books. Many of us work in learning environments where we work with textbooks. I don't, and neither does my school, but we do use textbooks. I do find them to be okay in some learning situations, but I definitely do not use them in any of my lectures nor in any of the classes, but I do use them as reference books to help me put classes together. I try to get away from prescribed learning, which sometimes is given inside the course books, pre-given grammar structures. I don't think anybody walks around speaking in the present simple all day long, so we do need to mix the grammar structures in a very natural way. And of course, I always try to create lessons that I can recycle, and I know that the dynamics change from group to group, but it's always good to create some great lessons that I've tried out and experimented with that I can use again in another class or another group. Number 7, support skills learning. Use their existing base. What do they bring to the classroom that will help them to reach their goals? What skills do they have with their mother language that they can use in their second language learning experience? And along the way, and I really like that part, is that they're learning a lot of new skills. And they're very appreciative at the end when they really reflect on what they've learned, and not just the language itself, but all the skills that came along with that and that appeared in the second language learning experience. Number 8, promote storytelling. Well, every adult has a story to tell, and they want you to create opportunities or situations that will help them to tell those stories. And it's our job to help them create strategies to find the language that they're going to need to tell that story, because all human beings do have a story to tell. And also to be able to transfer that story into English. They also not only transfer the story, but they transfer a lot of the knowledge and wisdom that they have. This is, of course, most of the time what I do in coaching with managers and executives. They need to tell more detailed stories and be able to sit down with other people from other cultures. So this is what we do with them. And task-based learning, mind mapping, and project-based learning helps them to do that. Number 9, incorporate different teaching approaches. Well, it starts with mind mapping, and many teachers might not know how to do that effectively. If you look me up on Google, you might find something on YouTube or with some YouTube video that will help you to learn a little bit more about how to incorporate mind mapping into the learning process. But also why don't you Google what TBL is and PBL? And when I say PBL, we're talking about problem-based learning, project-based learning, and phenomena-based learning. And if you can incorporate those into your classroom, even to the point of phenomena-based learning and service learning, you are really at a high point of learning, and your students will benefit from that greatly. The last thing is what it really is all about is creativity and product creation. PBL, TBL, whatever PBL it is, it's about getting people to create products. They can be anything as simple as a 120-word essay to more complicated research papers, but getting them to and helping them to find the language and get the skills that they're going to need to successfully present something, and in turn get some feedback from you, because in the end, presenting a product is one thing, but they also need feedback from you so that they know how to do and what to do afterwards to help to improve and go further in their process of self-development. So that's what I had to say today. Thank you, Rob. Thank you for inviting me, and it's very nice to see there's a lot of people here today. And this has been the first one I've done in quite some time. So thank you for letting me be the first one. And I can't believe I did it the first time in 10 years.